Self-doubt is not humility, it's hesitation dressed up as intelligence. Let's get something straight right now. You're not doubting yourself because you're deep. You're doubting yourself because you're afraid of being exposed, afraid of failing, afraid of looking stupid, afraid of being seen. I've worked protection details where hesitation could get someone killed. Presidents, foreign heads of state, high-threat environments. You don't get the luxury of sitting there saying, I don't know if I'm ready or not. You move. And here's the truth. Most of the time, nobody feels ready. People are far more capable than they think, but they never test it. They sit in analysis. They sit in comparison. They sit in what if. Let me tell you something I learned early in the Secret Service. During training, we ran a simulation, high-pressure, chaotic scenario, loud noise, confusion, split-second decisions. I hesitated for half a second. The instructor paused the drill and looked at me and said, Indecision is a decision. Read that again. Indecision is a decision. You think you're staying neutral. You're not. You're choosing inaction. You're choosing the slow bleed instead of the sharp cut. Why does it matter? Because self-doubt compounds. It builds evidence against you every time you don't speak up, every time you don't apply, every time you don't take the shot. Your brain goes, see, we don't do that. That's not who we are. And now you've built a prison. Here's the metaphor I want you to lock in. Your mind is a bathtub, your cognitive and emotional bathtub. Every fear, every comparison, every I'm not enough thought, that's water pouring in. And instead of turning the faucet off, you're adding more. Podcasts, opinions, social media, other people's success. You're drowning in your own overthinking. Stop adding. Start draining. Winning is not about adding more information. It's about removing noise. I interrogated people for years. You know what self-doubt sounds like in an interrogation room? It sounds like rambling, over-explaining, filling silence, trying to justify existence. Confidence is quiet, direct, clean. Short sentence, full stop. When I first started speaking publicly after leaving government service, I doubted myself. Yes, me. I walked onto stages thinking, who am I to be here? And then I caught myself. Who are you to impose that limitation on yourself? That question changed everything. Who are you to decide you're incapable before you've even tried? You're not that special, and I mean that in the most freeing way possible. Your fear is not unique. Your doubt is not unique. Everyone thinks they're the only one who feels like a fraud. They're not. You're not. And that's good news. Because if your doubt isn't special, then it's not destiny. It's just human. Winning starts when you accept reality. Reality, you will feel doubt. Reality, you will feel fear. Reality, you will not feel ready. Move anyway. In protective operations, we don't wait to feel safe. We create safety through action, through preparation, through execution. You don't build confidence by thinking about it. You build confidence by surviving evidence. Small win. Evidence. Another win. Evidence. Stack enough evidence. Identity shifts. Let me give you something tactical. Shoes by the bed. When I wanted to build discipline in a chaotic schedule, I put my training shoes by the bed. Not because I felt motivated, because I removed friction. In the morning, no debate, no internal courtroom drama. Shoes on, move, self-doubt feeds on delay. The longer you sit, the louder it gets. So here's your first action. Identify one thing you've been delaying because you're not sure. Write it down. Now ask yourself, what's the smallest next move? Not the whole mountain, just the next tree. When I was doing protective advances overseas, we never planned the entire operation emotionally. We broke it into checkpoints. Next building. Next street, next exit route. Just make it to the next tree. You want to stop doubting yourself? Stop trying to conquer the entire forest. One move, one decision, one action. Because here's the hard truth. No one is coming to validate you. No one is coming to rescue you. And if they do, you become dependent. And dependent people don't win. They wait. So let me ask you something. If every opportunity you approach ends in hesitation, if every room you walk into you shrink, if every bar you go to you get in a fight, is it the room? Is it the opportunity? Is it the bar? Or is it the pattern? We're going to dismantle that pattern, piece by piece, and we're going to replace it with something stronger. Not fake hype, not positive affirmations. evidence. In the next segment, I'm going to break down where self-doubt actually comes from and why most of it isn't even yours. Let's talk about where self-doubt actually comes from, because most of it, it's not yours. It's inherited, it's absorbed, it's installed. I've sat across from hardened criminals in interrogation rooms, murderers, con artists, career manipulators, and you know what I learned? Beliefs are programmable. If you repeat something long enough, it becomes truth in someone's mind. Now apply that to your childhood. Who told you to be realistic? Who told you people like us don't do that? Who laughed when you said you wanted more? Iceberg. What? You see in yourself? That's the tip. Underneath? Conditioning, family dynamics, cultural fear, old failures, teachers' comments, one bad breakup, one bad presentation, one rejection letter, and you built an identity around it. I remember protecting a former president during a campaign stop. Massive crowd. Tension was high. A junior agent hesitated to reposition because he didn't want to look aggressive. He later admitted he was worried about being judged in a high-risk environment. We had a conversation after. I told him, your job is not to be liked. Your job is to execute. Somewhere along the way, you confuse being liked with being safe. They are not the same. Self-doubt often comes from social survival. As kids, fitting in equals safety. If the tribe rejects you, you're alone, so you shrink, you adapt, you silence yourself. But here's the problem. What kept you safe at 10 years old is suffocating you at 30. You're still operating on outdated software, and you never updated it. I've seen this in consulting too. Executives who can run billion-dollar operations, but freeze when giving a keynote. Why? Because in 7th grade, someone told them they weren't a good speaker. 7th grade, and that comment is still running the show. Why does it matter? Because if you don't question the origin of your doubt, you assume it's truth. You say, that's just who I am. No. That's who you practice being. There's a difference. Let me give you another story. During polygraph examinations, people would come in convinced they were terrible liars. I'm so bad at this, they'd say. And I'd watch their physiology spike, not because they were guilty, because they believed they were incapable of handling pressure. Belief created the reaction, not reality. Your body listens to your narrative. If your internal dialogue is, I can't handle this. I'm not built for this. I'm not as smart as them. Your nervous system obeys. Your bathtub fills. Stress, cortisol, noise. You're drowning in thoughts that aren't even facts. Facts win arguments. Not I feel, not I think. Facts. So let's get factual. What objective evidence do you have that you're incapable? 1 failure. That's data. 2 mistakes. That's feedback. Rejection. That's selection pressure. Predators don't go after the strongest in the herd. They go after the ones who look unsure. The ones scanning. The ones hesitating. Self-doubt changes your posture, your voice, your timing. You become easy prey. In protective intelligence, we study behavior patterns. The attacker watches for vulnerability cues. You know what one of the biggest cues is? Indecision. You do that in business, in relationships, in life. You telegraph uncertainty, and the world responds accordingly. So what do? First, separate facts from feelings. Write down the situation that's triggering doubt. Now divide a page in half. Left side facts, right side story. Be ruthless. I didn't get the promotion. Fact. I'm not leadership material. Story. I stumbled during the presentation. Fact. I'm terrible at public speaking. Story. Drain the bathtub. Second. Audit your circle. Low vibration people will drown you. I've seen it. I've seen talented individuals sabotage themselves because they kept advisors who projected their own fear. You cannot soar with people who are committed to crawling. Be careful who you let into your circle. Be careful what voices you let into your head. Be careful what you rehearse. You always have a choice. Even when it feels like you don't, you can choose to keep replaying old criticism, or you can choose to collect new evidence. You can choose to cling to the iceberg, trying to change people who minimize you. Or you can accept them as they are and adapt or leave, not change them. Adapt or leave. That's power. And when you start exercising that power, even in small ways, something shifts. You stop waiting for permission. You stop outsourcing your confidence, and you begin to understand something critical. Winning is not external first, it's internal first, then external. In the next segment, we're going to talk about how overthinking is quietly killing your momentum and how to shut it down without becoming reckless. Overthinking feels responsible. It feels intelligent, strategic, careful. It's not. Most of the time, it's fear wearing a lab coat. I've been in situations overseas where intelligence was incomplete, threat levels elevated, moving parts everywhere. You gather data, yes. You assess, yes. But at some point you act. You don't get infinite information, and neither do you in your life. Here's what overthinking actually is: cognitive spinning. Your brain trying to create certainty in an uncertain world. It can't, so it keeps running scenarios. What if this goes wrong? What if they judge me? What if I fail publicly? Your bathtub fills and fills and fills. Let me tell you something about drowning. When someone is drowning, they don't calmly wait for rescue. They panic. Hey, flail. They grab. And if you're not trained, they'll drown you trying to save themselves. Overthinking is mental flailing. You're not solving, you're thrashing. I saw this during a high-pressure advance in a foreign country. A newer agent kept rerunning contingency plans out loud, over and over. What if this happens? What if that happens? At some point, I said, we've planned it. Now execute. Planning builds structure. Overthinking erodes it. There's a line. You cross it when thinking stops producing clarity and starts producing paralysis. So how do you know you've crossed it? Simple question, is this thought helping me act? If the answer is no, it's noise, and noise must be cut. People are far more capable than they think, but they talk themselves out of action before reality ever gets a chance to challenge them. You reject yourself before the world can. Why? Control. If you quit first, you don't have to feel rejected. If you don't apply, you don't have to be told no. If you don't speak, you can't be criticized. Short-term comfort, long-term regret, short-term safety, long-term weakness. Let me give you a personal example. When I transitioned out of government service, I had a choice: stay in a secure, respected lane, or step into entrepreneurship and public speaking. Uncertain, exposed, visible. My brain started listing risks, income instability, public criticism, failure, valid concerns. But here's what I asked myself: is this analysis moving me forward, or is it stalling me? It was stalling. So I gave myself a rule: limited decision window. You don't get forever to decide. I use this with clients now. Give yourself a deadline for decisions, not emotional, strategic. You want to launch the business? 30 days to research. Then choose. You want to leave the relationship? Gather facts. Then choose. You want to apply for the role? Prep. Then choose. Endless thinking is a luxury of the undisciplined. In protection, hesitation is vulnerability. In life, it's the same. Predators look for easy prey. Not physically, psychologically. Employers, competitors, manipulative partners, they sense uncertainty. When you over-explain, when you waffle, when you constantly revise your stance, you're signaling doubt. Confidence doesn't mean you know everything. It means once you decide, you commit, even if it's imperfect. You always have a choice. Even when it feels like you don't, you can choose clarity over chaos. You can choose action over rumination. You can choose progress over perfection. Perfection is a delay tactic. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. If you had to act today, no more thinking, what would you do? Who would you call? What would you submit? What would you end? What would you begin? Notice how your body reacts to that question. That's the edge. That's the growth point. Winning isn't about eliminating doubt. It's about shrinking the space between doubt and action. Doubt shows up. Fine, you acknowledge it. Fine, you move anyway. That gap between fear and movement, that's where identity is forged. And identity is everything. In the next segment, we're going to dismantle the myth that confidence comes first, and I'll show you how to build it mechanically, even if you feel like a fraud. Let's destroy a myth right now. Confidence does not come first. Action comes first. C. Confidence is the receipt. I've protected presidents. I've interrogated violent offenders. I've spoken in rooms where one wrong move could cost lives or credibility. Do you think I walked into those environments feeling confident every time? No. I walked in prepared. Prepared is different than confident. Confidence is emotional. Preparation is structural. And structure wins. When I first had to brief a room full of senior agents, men with decades more experience than me, my inner voice was loud. Who do you think you are? Don't mess this up. So I did something simple. I over-prepared. I knew my material cold. I rehearsed out loud. I anticipated questions. When the moment came, I didn't rely on confidence. I relied on competence. That's the shift you need to make. Stop waiting to feel ready. Build capability instead. Here's how confidence is actually built. Action. Evidence. Identity. You act, you survive it. You collect evidence. Your identity shifts. Most people want identity, confidence, action. It doesn't work that way. You don't think your way into confidence, you behave your way into it. Let me tell you about an interrogation I conducted early in my career. The subject was combative, aggressive, testing me. He leaned forward and said, "You don't look like you've done this long." He was trying to destabilize me. In that moment, I had a choice: react emotionally or respond strategically. I slowed down, lowered my voice, asked a direct question, controlled the pace, and something interesting happened. He adjusted. Predators test boundaries. When they meet resistance, calm, grounded resistance, they recalibrate. Same in life. When you start acting decisively, even if your voice shakes a little, the world begins to respond differently, because you're signaling something new. Let's talk about the fraud feeling, imposter syndrome. Here's the truth. Growth feels like fraudulence, because you're stepping into territory your identity hasn't caught up with yet. When I first transitioned into media and speaking, I felt like I was trespassing. I'm not from this world. Exactly. That's the point. You don't grow by staying in environments where you feel completely comfortable. You grow where there's friction. Friction builds strength. But here's the key: controlled friction, not chaos. This is where the shoes by the bed principle comes back. Tiny, consistent actions. You want to build confidence speaking? Speak every day. Record yourself. Post. Adjust. You want to build confidence in business? Make one sales call a day. Track outcomes. Improve. You want to build confidence physically? Train, even when you don't feel like it. Self-doubt shrinks in the presence of repeated exposure. Avoidance feeds it. Exposure starves it. People are far more capable than they think, but they underestimate the power of repetition. Repetition is boring. Winning is repetitive. You think elite protection is glamorous? It's drills, walkthroughs, rehearsals, over and over. Because when pressure hits, you don't rise to the level of your hopes. You fall to the level of your training. Let me ask you something. What are you training for right now? Are you training yourself to hesitate, to overthink, to avoid, or are you training yourself to execute? You always have a choice. And here's another hard truth. You're not that special. You're not uniquely broken. You're not uniquely incapable. Millions of people have built confidence from worse starting points than yours. That should free you. It means this is buildable, mechanically buildable. So here's your assignment for this segment. Pick one area where you doubt yourself. Now design a repetition plan. Small, daily, measurable, no emotion attached, just behavior. Write it down, track it, execute it, because in the next segment, we're going to talk about something uncomfortable, how your environment and your relationships might be reinforcing your self-doubt more than you realize. Let's talk about your environment, because you can build skill, you can build discipline, you can build repetition, but if your circle is contaminated, you will keep shrinking. I've seen highly trained agents lose edge because they surrounded themselves with complacency. Standards drop quietly, not dramatically, quietly. It's not one big failure, it's small tolerances. You tolerate negativity, you tolerate excuses, you tolerate gossip, you tolerate people who mock ambition, and every tolerance lowers your internal standard. Low vibration people don't stab you in the front. They leak you slowly. They question your goals. They joke about your dreams. They remind you who you used to be. Let me give you a real example. I once consulted for a high-performing executive who kept second-guessing every major decision. Smart, capable, proven track record, but paralyzed. We dug deeper. Every time he went home excited about growth, his partner responded with fear. What if it fails? Why can't you just be satisfied? Isn't that risky? Not malicious, just limited. Iceberg. People show you the tip. Support, smiles, words. Underneath, their fears. their insecurities, their ceiling. You cannot make someone see beyond their iceberg. Accept them as they are. Adapt or leave. Not change them. Adapt or leave. He didn't need more confidence training. He needed environmental boundaries. When he stopped discussing high-risk strategic moves at home and instead sought counsel from people operating at that level, his doubt decreased. Why? Because his environment stopped reinforcing fear. Ask yourself something direct. Who do you become around the 5 people you spend the most time with? Do you become sharper or smaller? Do you become bolder or more cautious? If every time you share an idea, someone immediately points out the downside, eventually you stop sharing. Predators look for easy prey, not just in dark alleys, in boardrooms, in negotiations, in relationships. If someone senses you doubt yourself, they will leverage it. I've seen it in interrogations. A subject who feels strong holds posture. A subject who feels unsure fidgets, looks for validation, overtalks. Same in life. Self-doubt leaks through behavior. Now here's the part people don't like to hear. Sometimes you are the low-vibration person in your own life. You replay old mistakes, you speak to yourself harshly, you remind yourself of failures, you magnify rejection, you're drowning yourself. Your emotional bathtub isn't just filled by others, it's filled by your own narrative. So what do you remove? First, limit exposure to chronic negativity, not one bad day. Chronic patterns. Second, stop explaining your ambition. S to people committed to average. You don't need consensus, you need alignment. Third, protect your inputs. What are you watching daily? What are you listening to? Who are you texting? Cognitive hygiene matters. In protective intelligence, we control access. Not everyone gets near the protectee. There are layers, screening, barriers. But in your mind, open door policy. Anyone gets in. Any opinion gets in. Any comment gets in. And then you wonder why you're unstable. You always have a choice, even when it feels like you don't. You can choose who has proximity to your ambition. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. If you elevated your standards tomorrow, who would disappear from your life? And if that scares you, why? Short-term loneliness, long-term expansion, or short-term comfort, long-term stagnation. Which one are you choosing? Because winning requires insulation, not isolation. Insulation. In the next segment, we're going to go deeper into identity, who you believe you are, and how that silent belief is either fueling your rise or sabotaging it before you even begin. Now we go to the core, identity. Because you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your identity. You can set all the targets you want, more money, better body, bigger stage. But if deep down you see yourself as not that person, you will sabotage the climb. I've seen this in interrogations. A suspect says, "I'm not a bad guy," but the facts say otherwise. So what does he do? He justifies, minimizes, rewrites the story to protect identity. Identity will defend itself at all costs. Now flip that. If your identity is, "I'm not confident, I'm not leadership material, I am always the anxious one," your brain will protect that label. You'll hesitate. To stay consistent, you'll shrink. To stay consistent, you'll doubt. To stay consistent, because being inconsistent with your identity feels dangerous. Let me give you a personal story. Early in my career, I was often the only woman in certain operational environments. There were moments where I felt the weight of that, the silent evaluation, the testing. If I had adopted the identity of "I have to prove I belong," I would have overcompensated, talked too much, forced authority. Instead, I chose something different. I am competent, not I hope, not I'll try, I am, and then I behaved accordingly. Identity first. Behavior aligns, but here's the key. You don't pick an identity randomly, you build it through repeated evidence. Remember, action, evidence, identity. You act in a new way. You collect proof. You update self-image. Most people never consciously update their identity. They're running on childhood definitions. She's the shy one, he's the reckless one, she's emotional, he's not academic. Labels become cages, and you accept them. Why? Because they're familiar. You're not that special. Your pain isn't unique. Your doubt isn't unique. But your responsibility, that's yours. You always have a choice. Even when it feels like you don't, you can choose to keep repeating, "That's just who I am." Or you can say, "That was who I practiced being." There's power in that shift. Let me ask you something direct. If I followed you for 30 days, watched your habits, your language, your standards, what identity would I conclude you have? Disciplined, avoida, NT, courageous, passive? Your behaviors are voting every day. And right now, some of you are casting votes for the exact identity you say you don't want. You say you want confidence, but you avoid exposure. You say you want leadership, but you avoid responsibility. You say you want success, but you protect comfort. Short-term comfort, long-term regret. Here's something tactical, language audit. Stop saying, I'm bad at this. I'm just not confident. I'm always anxious. Replace it with, I'm building skill here. I'm practicing confidence. I'm learning to handle pressure. Subtle? Yes. Powerful? Absolutely. Your nervous system listens to your words. In high-threat environments, tone matters. If a lead agent sounds uncertain, the entire team feels it. If the tone is steady, controlled, everyone stabilizes. You are the lead agent of your own life. What tone are you setting internally? Are you escalating panic or creating stability? Confidence is not loud, it's regulated. It's calm under tension, and that regulation is trained. Breathing under stress, pausing before reacting, answering instead of explaining. In the next segment, we're going to tackle something that quietly fuels self-doubt more than almost anything else. Comparison. Because if you don't master that, you will keep shrinking every time someone else rises. Comparison. This one is lethal, not because other people are better, but because you're measuring the wrong things. In protective work, we assess threats based on capability and intent. Facts, behavior, patterns. We don't assess based on emotion, but when you compare yourself to someone else, what do you compare? Their age. Highlight real to your behind the scenes. Their strength to your insecurity. Their outcome to your beginning. Their chapter 20 to your chapter 2. And then you say, I'm behind. Behind what? There is no universal clock. I've protected individuals who peaked publicly at 30 and privately collapsed at 45. I've met people who were invisible at 25 and unstoppable at 50. Timing is not linear. Let me tell you about a moment that shifted my thinking. During a high-level protective detail, I was working alongside agents who had decades more experience. I could have sat there thinking, I'm not at their level. Instead, I asked myself, what is my role right now? Not what's their role. Mine. Comparison distracts you from your assignment. And when you lose focus on your assignment, performance drops. Let's use another metaphor. You're running your race, but every 5 seconds you're turning your head to see who's ahead. What happens? You slow down. You drift. You stumble. Focus forward. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes comparison is an excuse. If you convince yourself someone else is naturally better, you don't have to push harder. Oh, she's just confident. Oh, he's just gifted. They have connections. Maybe not. But here's the question that matters. What are you doing with what you have? Facts win arguments. Not I feel like they're ahead. Facts. How many hours are you training? How many reps are you putting in? How many uncomfortable rooms are you walking into, or are you scrolling? Comparison is fuel if you use it correctly. When I trained physically, I didn't resent stronger athletes. I studied them. What are they doing differently? How are they structuring their sessions? What's their discipline like? That's strategic comparison, not emotional comparison. Emotional comparison drains your bathtub. Strategic comparison sharpens you. There's a difference. Let me give you something else. You don't see other people's icebergs. You see their confidence. You don't see their panic before the meeting. You see their success. You don't see their rejection emails. You see their body. You don't see their 5 a.m. discipline. You're comparing visible tip to your entire underwater mass. Unfair measurement. And when the measurement is unfair, the conclusion will be distorted. You're not that special, meaning your struggles aren't uniquely crippling. But you are uniquely positioned. Your background, your skills, your network, your perspective. Stop wishing you had someone else's starting point. Use yours. Predators pick easy prey, the one distracted, scanning, uncertain. When you're constantly comparing, you're distracted. Stay locked in. Let me ask you directly. If you stopped comparing for 90 days, no scrolling, no measuring, no tracking others, what would you build? What would you attempt? Who would you become? Because the energy you're spending monitoring other people's pace could be invested in your own execution. Short-term envy, long-term stagnation, or short-term focus, long-term domi. Nance, You choose. You always have a choice. In the next segment, we're going to talk about fear of failure, the silent driver under self-doubt, and how to reframe failure so it stops controlling your decisions. Let's talk about failure, because this is the engine under your self-doubt. You're not doubting your ability, you're doubting your ability to survive failure. There's a difference. I've been in operations where plans didn't unfold perfectly. Intelligence shifts, logistics fail, weather changes, you adapt. Failure in that world isn't emotional, it's informational, data. But in your life, failure feels like identity death. I failed becomes I am a failure. That's catastrophic thinking. Let me tell you something from interrogation work. When someone lies and gets caught, the first reaction isn't logic, it's panic. Because exposure feels like annihilation, their identity cracks. But here's what I learned. Exposure doesn't kill you. It recalibrates you. Failure is exposure. It exposes gaps, weaknesses, blind spots. That's not humiliation. That's instruction. When I first started speaking publicly, I bombed a segment during a live interview, lost my train of thought, stumbled. It replayed in my head for days. My brain tried to turn it into a global conclusion. You're not cut out for this. But I forced myself to review it like an operation. What went wrong? What was controllable? What do I adjust? Facts, not emotion. The next appearance? Better. That's the pattern. Failure, analysis, adjustment, improvement. But most people stop at failure. Emotion, retreat, short-term protection, long-term weakness. You're trying to avoid embarrassment. You're trying to avoid discomfort. You're trying to avoid being seen struggling. Let me ask you something blunt. Who are you to demand a struggle-free path? Who told you growth would be elegant? You're not that special. Everyone who wins fails publicly at some point. The difference? They metabolize it differently. In protective training, we run failure drills on purpose, simulated ambushes, sudden chaos. Why? Because exposure reduces shock. The more you expose yourself to controlled failure, the less terrifying it becomes. That's why repetition matters. That's why small risks matter. You don't jump into the ocean during a storm if you've never been in a pool. Shoes by the bed, small exposures. Post the video even if it's imperfect. Pitch the idea even if it's raw. Apply even if you're not 100% qualified. Exposure builds tolerance. Avoidance builds fragility, and fragility feeds doubt. Let's go deeper. Sometimes you're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of succeeding and then being expected to sustain it. That's heavier because now the standard rises. I've seen agents hesitate to take leadership roles not because they feared incompetence, but because they feared visibility. Success increases visibility. Visibility increases scrutiny. But here's the truth. You are already being judged, whether you act or not, so you might as well act. You always have a choice. Stay small to avoid criticism or expand and accept scrutiny. Short-term invisibility. Long-term regret or short-term discomfort. Long-term expansion. Winning requires exposure, and exposure includes failure. In the next segment, we're going to bring this together into a tactical blueprint, a step-by-step way to move from chronic self-doubt to controlled execution. No hype, just structure. Now we build the blueprint, step by step, tactical, no fluff. Step 1, audit your bathtub. Your mind is flooded with water, fear, doubt, noise. Identify what's toxic, stop consuming it. Limit social media, limit chronic negativity, limit self-criticism. Drain, drain, drain. Don't add more water before you empty what's there. Step 2, separate fact from story. Every time doubt hits, write it down. Split page. Left, facts. Right, story. Be ruthless. I didn't get that promotion. Fact, I'm a failure. Story, facts win. Stories fuel doubt. Stop believing your story blindly. Step 3, micro-action planning. Forget the mountain, forget the 10-year plan. Shoes by the bed, tiny steps, one decision, one call, one pitch, one conversation, one tree at a time. Action breeds evidence. Evidence reshapes identity. Identity drives confidence. It's mechanical. Step 4, identity alignment. Who do you want to be? Not what you want to achieve, but who. Define it. Short phrases. I am decisive. I am competent. I take the next step. Speak it. Live it. Behave consistently. Identity protects you from self-doubt. Act like the person you're becoming. Step 5, controlled exposure. Fear of failure? Good. Start small. Post that imperfect video, call that client, apply for that position, fail in low-risk scenarios first, build tolerance. Each exposure reduces panic. Each exposure expands your perimeter. Step 6. Environmental discipline. Audit your circle. Who elevates? Who drains? Who mocks? Adapt or leave. Limit chronic negativity. Stop outsu. Are seeing your internal dialogue to people committed to mediocrity. Protect your cognitive bathtub like a Secret Service detail. Layers, barriers, controlled access. Step 7. Comparison detox. Stop measuring your beginning against someone else's chapter 20. Strategic comparison only. Study for insight, never for judgment. Observation, not envy. Forward focus. Your race is yours. Eyes forward, head up, execute. Step 8. Repeated calibration. Evidence collection is relentless. Track small wins. Review failures like operations, adjust, iterate. You're always collecting data. Confidence is a muscle built on repetition, not wishful thinking. Step 9. Decision window. Set deadlines for action. Analysis paralysis kills momentum. 30 days to research, 1 day to decide, 5 minutes to act. No endless debating. Limited window forces commitment. Limited window shrinks doubt. Limited window creates freedom. Step 10. Ownership. Everything is yours. Doubt, fear, environment, actions, yours. Own them. Stop blaming circumstance. Stop waiting for permission. You always have a choice, even when it feels like you don't. That's freedom. That's power. That's winning. This blueprint is not theoretical. It's tested. Real world, operational. I've lived it protecting presidents, interrogating liars, advising executives, building my own post-government life. The same rules apply to you. No excuses, no shortcuts, no waiting. Here's your final assignment before the last segment. Pick one toxic influence, one recurring self-doubt, one small action you've avoided. Apply steps 1 through 10 over the next 7 days. Track evidence, adjust identity, re-expose yourself. Step into disc. Comfort. Execute. Watch how quickly doubt starts to shrink. In the next segment, we'll close this out with the mindset that separates chronic doubters from consistent winners. The philosophy you must internalize and repeat every day until it becomes reflex. This is it, the mindset, the final piece. The part most people never get because they want shortcuts. They want inspiration. They don't want truth. Winning is not dramatic. Winning is habitual. Here's the philosophy you must live. You are always more capable than you think. You always have a choice, even when it feels like you don't. Facts, not feelings, drive results. Repeat it, out loud, daily, until it's instinct. Let me break it down. Doubt will show up every day. Doubt doesn't go away. Doubt is a predator. It prowls, looking for hesitation. But here's the trick. You can train yourself to act in its presence. To move even when it snarls. To execute even when it whispers, "You're not ready." I remember a detail in Washington. Threats high, logistics chaotic, plans changing mid-move. Every agent had moments of hesitation. Those who hesitated even slightly created vulnerability. Those who acted decisively, even imperfectly, controlled outcomes. Life is the same. You hesitate, you invite risk. You act, you create opportunity. Short-term fear, long-term mastery, short-term doubt, long-term clarity, short-term discomfort, long-term dominance. And here's the repeating rhythm you must memorize. Audit your bathtub, drain the toxic water, separate fact from story, evidence narrative, micro-action planning, one step, one tree, one move, identity alignment, speak it, live it, protect it, controlled exposu. Start small. Fail safely, learn faster, environmental discipline, protect your circle, remove drains, comparison detox, study strategically, forward only, repeated calibration, evidence, adjust, iterate, decision window, act, no infinite debate, ownership. Everything is yours. Take it, command it. I'm going to give you one last set of metaphors because my brain thinks visually. Think of yourself as a Secret Service detail. Your mind is a protected asset. Guard it. Control access, remove threats. Your identity is the secure perimeter. Fortify it with evidence. Reinforce daily. Your doubt is an external threat, not an internal truth. Neutralize it through action. Your actions are tactical movements. Small, precise, repeatable. Every step counts. Do this relentlessly, daily. even when it's boring, even when it's scary, even when it's uncomfortable. Short-term effort, long-term dominance. That's the currency of self-trust. That's how you stop doubting. That's how you start winning. Final story. My first speaking engagement post-government. I was terrified, voice shaking, heart pounding. I thought, I'm exposed. I'm unprepared. I followed the steps, micro actions, identity alignment, evidence collection. I spoke. People listened. They responded. My nervous system learned I could handle exposure. Confidence started building from action, not feeling. That day, I earned a new identity. I am capable. I execute. I survive pressure. That's your blueprint. That's your philosophy. That's your life if you choose it. So here's the closing challenge. Pick one fear today, one area of doubt. Take one decisive action. Collect evidence. Reinforce identity. Adjust, repeat. Daily, because doubting yourself is optional. Winning is inevitable when you act despite it. Own it. Act. Execute. Repeat. You have a choice. You always have a choice.